Hey everybody, Jay Schlansky here from the Fifth Trooper Network. I just want to take a moment to thank you for checking out this show. Did you know that over at thefifthtrooper.com we have tons of other content, including blogs, other podcasts, all kinds of stuff. In addition, if you want access to exclusive content, you can join us on patreon.com/thefifthtrooper and join at any level and you'll get access to exclusive blog articles, access to our private Discord, and much more. So please check us out, and thank you so much for all your support.
Welcome to the Notorious Scoundrels, a Star Wars Legion podcast bringing you the latest news, general perspective, and competitive discussion.
Hello, and welcome back to the Notorious Scoundrels podcast. I'm Mike. I am here today with Evan. How you doing, man?
Hey again, Mike. I guess you were shorthanded once again, so here I am.
Oh, come on. You've been here like every week for what, the past like month?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
Have we lost subscribers since then?
No, we're on the upswing, frankly.
Oh, okay, great.
In fact, I meant to do this last week, but I think I was sick last week. Kyle's sick this week, so sorry everybody. But I did want to celebrate the fact that we are at like 1.2 million like total downloads over the lifetime of this podcast.
Wow.
And obviously we didn't just hit 1 million because we're at like 1.2, but that was I had just looked at the numbers for the first time in a long time, and that just seemed like a really cool thing. So thank you everybody for listening. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I that's sort of like when we started this, that seemed, I don't know, kind of crazy to be here and have those sorts of numbers. So
I remember the very first episode of Notorious Scoundrels that I listened to was the one where I heard all of you talking about. I just started the game right after the Clone Wars set came out, and I remember hearing all of you talking about the concept of clones sharing standby tokens. And as I was listening to that, I'd been playing for like a month, and I literally had never even thought about it because I looked at that standby token and it sure looked like a gray token to me.
That's fair. That's fair.
I was like, what? It's a green token and I can share it. And that's when my poor little brother started to enjoy the game a lot less after that. So I have you guys to thank for that.
Yeah. Well, tell your brother you're welcome. I mean,
All right, Greg.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's a good thing that those are not green tokens anymore, and that you may not share them via the clone trooper rule.
A lot's changed.
A lot has changed.
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit last week for folks who haven't listened to it yet, but a lot's changed, and almost all of it has been for the better, in all honesty.
Sure.
In the grand scheme of
things. Yeah. Okay.
Again, if you want to experience the full conversation about what's changed and whether it is better, then listen to Notorious Scoundrels from last week.
Yes. Yeah. I definitely think you guys were far more tactful in your discussion than I think I would have been. So
that's why we told you to be sick that day.
That's what I'm saying. You guys picked a good day to talk about it. That's for sure. In that vein, though, I think this week we're gonna kind of talk about kind of how the meta's shaking out, some kind of takeaways that we both have kind of come to. I got to play in a tournament over the weekend, which I won. Still got it.
Well done.
Even with Republic. Well, I didn't play Republic, so they got nerfed, and now I don't want to touch them. They're just terrible now, obviously. You know. So yeah, I guess why don't we start there? I played Dooku Maul 14 activation shenanigans. It was basically 2 naked BXs, 5 naked B1s, a B1 with a medical droid, Dooku with like all the fixings, Maul with all the fixings minus force push. I took Saber Throw instead. I took 2 Droidekas, and Kraken. I think that's 14. Um, essentially,
The training on Maul was Frey and Tenacity.
yes.
Okay.
Maul was burst of speed, saber throw, tenacity into the fray. I did not miss force push, which I was a little bit hesitant about on him. I took aggressive tactics, burst of speed, force choke, force push on Dooku.
Yep.
And my God, that man, the direct trooper unit on his unit card is really takes him up a notch. Particularly like you're just like, yeah, all of his cunning cards are like cunning command cards for whatever other character you're playing, and that's just like all of a sudden Maul has cunning, or if you're playing Asajj or whatever. He's just, yeah, he's brutal. He's really good.
And for everybody at home, remember that Dooku can use that direct trooper on himself.
Yes. So, you play like Maul's 1 pip and you're like, yeah,
Yep.
Dooku also is just gonna get an order. Like, all right.
It's it's one of the best keywords that's like on any unit in the game. Is just as simple as direct trooper.
Yeah, no. And the fact that it's like, like you said, you can target yourself with it. It's just gnarly. So yeah, the list played out pretty well. I intentionally skewed my turn 0 deck to stuff that I don't like / always avoid playing. So like I put like destroy enemy base in there because generally I think that secondary is like really, I don't know if bad is the right word, but it's extremely swingy. In that, like, I think in most games of Legion, you want to be able to try and shut the game down early by just getting to 12, and destroy enemy base is generally does not facilitate that in the way that a lot of the other secondaries do.
Yeah.
And but regardless of me putting shenanigans in my deck that I don't normally play, I ended up on recover the research and surface scan for literally every game I played.
Wow.
Yes,
Wait.
literally
So
all of them.
the same primary and secondary for all 3 of your games.
Across every game, I played the same primary and secondary.
Well, huh.
Yeah.
It does help that both of those are relatively neutral as far as the list comp goes, I think.
I don't think so. So I have avoided surface scan like the plague because I actually think it's like a pretty swingy objective, and that if you're able to nail the like if you drop a scanner, the game is kind of over.
Yeah, because it's a swing. It's a 3-point swing if a scanner gets dropped and scanned by your opponent.
Yes, and that's pretty much like maybe you can come back from a 1-point deficit. You like drop a scanner and they didn't contest it or whatever.
Right.
But if you drop it and they contest it, you're dead. You are so just dead. And I do think that I like won the majority of my games this weekend off the back of just like catching people not being prepared for that. Like I just like actively like was like, there's your scanner unit. I'm sending Dooku at it like a missile,
So you put your scanners on Dooku and Maul.
Yes, which actually one of the reasons I've avoided it in the past is that I have always felt like I haven't had 2 great targets.
Right.
And Dooku and Maul, neither of them died all weekend. Turns out when you have full order control on them in a list like that, it's Maul came close once, but I don't think either of them fell below 3 wounds other than Maul in my last game.
Man.
There's just so between backup, having a medic,
yeah, fair.
And like it's and deflect being always on, it's a lot harder to just like accidentally kill a Jedi these days.
I feel like one of the tactics that the community has probably, I'm including myself here, that the community has probably been a little bit slower to like really take advantage of is backup. I have certainly still found myself not remembering to account for it in certain games, and then
In fairness, it's easy to forget.
It's easy to forget, and half range is pretty close, and so it's easy to mess that up. I've gotten a little bit better about that with the pour one out for Yoda Wookiees, but when I was playing that with Chewbacca, is that keeping Chewbacca next to Yoda definitely saved Yoda a lot of wounds. And when your backup is 6 naked B1s, is that what you said?
5 naked B1s,
5 naked B1s.
plus a B1 with a med droid, which
right.
essentially is naked, but yes.
Yeah, that's a lot of backup.
It is a lot of backup, and it's also, man, we can talk about that later, but those units are just so good.
Yeah.
Like, I don't, I know we just had a points update. I'm not saying that B1s need to be more expensive. I am saying that like 38 points for a B1 unit that like generally these days has access to surge tokens, whether that's aggressive tactics or exemplar or whatever, or bolster. 38 points for like basically surging white saves on 6 health. When you compare that to like a rebel trooper unit, it's just like the efficiency is just not even close to the same.
Yeah. It is interesting though, is that before the update, is that I would see a lot of people sort of talking about B1s as if they were utter garbage. And I do think that was probably overstated, and everything when you're comparing it to something like the insane Anakin quad strike list or anything similar, is that everything sort of looks and feels like garbage when you're comparing to ridiculous lists like that. And maybe now that the playing field is a little bit more equal, is that people will see units for what they're really worth, which will hopefully be a nice thing for most people.
Yeah, I do think let's just jump right into it. I think I would love to talk about the idea of like naked B1s or naked rebel troopers for that matter. I kind of see them as like 40 point, like I paid 40 points for a victory point, and that what this unit is gonna do is that on turn 2 or turn 3 or turn 4, I'm just gonna fire this unit at a POI like a missile, knowing it's going to die, and its only job is to score that victory point one time.
Yeah.
And that's it. And I don't know, like how much is that worth? Like, is that seems to me to be the strategy that I think maybe not every droid list, but droid lists that are employing B1s or rebel lists that are employing rebel troopers, like that sort of strategy does seem very reasonable, and it's, in my experience so far, has paid dividends on winning games. Like you can't think of your units as things that you have to preserve. You have to think of your units as, how many victory points can I trade this unit for?
Yeah. And it used to be a much easier question to answer when you needed to put heavies on units if they were ever going to do damage.
Yep.
And so it used to be like, okay, you can put naked stuff in there, but it's literally just there to be a body, which is only going to matter on half of the objectives or whatever it was. And then in the other objectives is that they're not going to be doing much except be an activation for you to like be sort of an essential pass token against your opponent. But now that cover has changed, is you and Kyle talked earlier about the fact that Rebel Troopers were a really good example of something that more Rebel players should be just considering running naked, and I think that has borne out to a large degree. But not just them. We'll maybe go over it a little bit, but at the first GT that was post points update, is there were lots of naked core squads, like when you're looking all the way down the top 8 for multiple factions. And so even if it's not like open and shut that it's always better to just run more nakeds than to have heavies, but the math is a lot closer to each other than it was before.
Yeah, I would say that, it definitely, our suspicions early on about naked units being like super good, I think they're better than I thought they were going to be. To be honest, they've been much, much better, to the point where, like, I'm looking at some of these people taking like token naked clone units, and I'm sort of thinking maybe the answer is just take them all naked and just like jack your activation count up to, like 14, 15 in a clone list, and you're netting more surge tokens through reliable and stuff because you have more of them. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think that goes. I mean, that was sort of the idea behind this Dooku list. Was it was just like, yeah, I've got 2 force users behind another 12 activations behind them. That's just like a lot of stuff. In addition to the fact that, the B1 heavies kind of, I don't know, you'd have to do the math, but I don't think before it was like, you're like, okay, you're paying 18 points for a gun that makes your unit like twice as effective,
Yeah.
right? And now it's definitely not 2x. I don't know like how the math should be done there, but yeah, it's weird because yeah, you're like, you roll 1 or 2 hits with your B1s and you're feeling like, yeah, that's fine. They probably killed a guy.
Yeah.
Like every time they shoot.
It is interesting because even just paying for an E5C before, it felt like especially early on, it felt like a really good deal, is that you were paying 18 points for 3 black dice that would basically be a permission slip for your unit to ever do damage aside from lucky crits.
Yep.
And now you're certainly like getting a lot less comparatively from those heavies. And when you think about the fact that on a B1 is that you're also getting 1 more non-surging white dice health, is that it does start to feel a little bit less great. I think that when it's a clone heavy and that you're getting 1 more effectively surging red dice health, is that it feels like you're gaining more by a bit.
So the argument that I think I'd like to make just for posterity and
sure
kind of is that basically within like some plus or minus, you can trade 2 heavies in for a naked core unit most of the time.
Yeah.
Roughly, right? Which means you're netting +2 health. In some cases, you're netting more than that. In B1s, you're netting +4 health, right? Not effective health, but just like raw wounds.
Right.
And like if you compare like 2 E5Cs to a full B1 unit, like yes, 6 black dice are better than 6 white dice, but you're also getting all that extra stuff with it too, right? And not only that, but like let's take the Republic heavies. Like if you trade like 2, I was gonna say DC-15s, but they don't exist anymore.
For now.
Like 2 Z6s in for like just a naked core unit. I guess it's like what, 12 white dice for 4 black dice. Like, yeah, that feels a little bit less good.
Yeah.
But it is still a lot more health, and you're netting extra surge tokens.
Yeah, 4 black dice and a surge token. And also 4 effectively surging red saves instead of 2.
Yeah. And I think before even with all of that being said, perhaps the most important thing that you're buying by doing that is that you are buying an extra unit that is potentially worth a victory point or two,
Right.
which you don't get if you have heavy weapons. Or rather, you have less of, I guess I should say. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like you got to do some like really janky calculus to figure out like what, like how much, like when you should do that and when you shouldn't do it, other than talking about like the feel and kind of vibe of when you should do that and when it's enough.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm definitely leaning in the camp right now of like, yeah, just get rid of the heavy weapons. Even on the specialist squads, I didn't take any heavy weapons on my like BXs or anything. They were great, by the way. they, they were fantastic.
So they were completely naked, as in they didn't even have vibro swords?
Correct.
Okay, wow.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess that would have been, if I was told that I was only allowed to take one upgrade and it wasn't heavy on them, is that the vibro swords do seem attractive because of the charge part specifically.
I agree. I definitely, I think there was a couple of modifications there's definitely one modification I would definitely make to the list. And then Vibro Swords is in the like, if I can find the points for it camp.
Yeah, yeah.
I definitely would have traded in Kraken for, I think, the regular super attack. Or if I could find the points, Kalani. Not
Yeah.
having an extra direct to trigger the
Mm,
aggressive tactics
right.
every time I want on like the 1 pips and stuff was a mistake. Having like the chargy boy cracking around was cool, but definitely totally unnecessary.
Yeah, makes
Um,
sense.
and I think that would have just been a lot better. Um,
So yeah, what did you run into in the tournament?
yeah, so I played against Ewoks, it was like 9 Ewok super squads.
Oh my god.
It was a lot, man. And
Pay to win,
then
bro.
yeah, and then it was EXD, which it was a little bit, I would say maybe a little bit non-typical EXD list that was, rather than the focus being the BXs or the snails, the
Hmm.
focus was 2 B2 super squads,
Okay.
backed up by BXs, but like the
Yeah.
focus was very clearly the super squads, um, which are frightening, by the way. I haven't played against a ton of them. Uh, they just like,
They are frightening. I think that their weakness starts to show when they only have like the one surge token that they get from AT or whatever, and then maybe something from Exemplar. Because like when they're rolling those big boy dice pools, and then also they're going to be targets very often during the game, is that surge tokens are going to run out, and then their relative efficacy, it does start to take a hit there.
yeah, I took Dooku and Maul and beat and like just dove them into one of the squads and
Right.
was like, I'm just gonna beat this squad over the head with as many
Yeah.
lightsabers as possible, which worked very well. And then the other squad, I just ran a B1 unit into melee with them every
Hell
turn.
yeah.
I was just like, yeah, sorry guys, I've
Charge.
got 14 activations. I
Yep.
will donate one of you
That's what they're good
each
for.
turn, just so that this 170 point slab doesn't eat the units that I would have preferred not. Um, and it seemed to work well. But yeah, I think just the fact that those units have 16 health for 170 points
That's a lot.
is it's yeah, often surging, at least for the
Surging ish. Yeah.
first couple saves or whatever, is
Yeah.
that's just like, hope you can do damage.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and then my last game I played against Pike Spam,
Hmm.
which,
How is that now? Like, how does that feel?
I mean, so I have first of all, I don't think Pike Spam has ever been bad out of context. In that I think that strategy in a vacuum has always and will always be viable. Having like somewhere between 2 to 3 dodge tokens on like all of your units at the start of a turn is like still really good, continues to be very good, and is only bad in a world where the 70% of players are playing like 3+ units with high velocity,
They were
right?
being market corrected by Republic Commandos.
Yeah. And so I'm not saying that they're overpowered or anything like that. I definitely am not sure where they fall on the scale of New Legion. This is the first time where
Mhm.
there wasn't commandos in the field to like put them immediately in the ground. I mean, the thing is, if you're playing pikes and your opponent's got 3 sets of commandos, like you just lose a squad and a half every turn, and
Yeah,
there's nothing you
it's
can
so
do
rough.
about it, right?
Yeah.
Um, I will say that our players that were playing commandos at the tournament did not have a good time. There was definitely like a lot of this unit feels too expensive. I'm not convinced that's the case.
I'm not either.
Um,
Having played it myself
I
since the change.
I do think you have to think about how you're building your Republic list differently, right?
Yeah.
Like you can't just take the list you had before
Right.
and hope it's gonna work. There's just not enough synergy, I think, in that list because it's 140 points more expensive.
Yeah.
So, um, but yeah, so I don't know. It was an interesting weekend. Main takeaways were Dooku's real good. I think super squads and Ewoks and B2s definitely scare me a little bit, particularly in the realm of like Republic is less killy than it used to be.
Yeah.
And uh Pike's still good, man. I definitely like had Dooku in melee with a Pike squad for like 4 turns, and he could not kill it. It's just like
Wow.
I mean, the only reason I was killing Pikes at all with Dooku is because I had Force Choke. It's like I got like 1 to 2 of them every turn with his lightsaber, and like just Force Choke was just like, yep, 50% extra damage.
Yeah.
So
Did he have Capo's shipping tokens over?
yeah, it was a triple capo Gar Saxon
Wow.
list. Um,
Cool.
yeah, it definitely very cool. Had some swoops in it.
Any super
Um,
commandos in there?
no, I definitely think he probably could have like taken like
Switched out some
drop
pikes for commandos.
or just taken the swoops out for commandos. I
Yeah, that's
definitely
fair.
think the swoops are.
I think
I
swoops.
dare to say this in your presence, but maybe the best speeder unit that
But
exists right now.
I thought you thought that it was the naked bark still.
I don't know. I think the bark just stays alive. I think, but I'm not sure that it's the
A swoop does
best.
too, though, because of the
The
independent dodge.
Yes, that was definitely my feeling, and I think the swoop just does a lot more damage
Oh
generally.
yeah,
Like
way
it,
way more
yeah.
than a bark. Their problem is, of course, that they have to get close to do that damage, and so if you have decent terrain and if you're very good with the timing, is that if you planned ahead in terms of engaging in just the right way, is that if you dive with 3 swoops and you're doing a good job, then I think you can kind of expect that maybe you can get away with 2 of the swoops and only one of them is going to bite the dust. And sometimes that's going to be more than good enough.
Yeah, particularly for their price point and stuff. I
Right.
think they're still pretty cheap, right? In contrast to the other speeders.
Yeah, I think
Um,
70, if I
yeah,
remember right.
which I think the Imperial speeder bikes are like 90 or something, right?
Yeah, I thought they're too much. I think they're 80. Whatever they
Okay,
are,
all
they're too
right.
much.
Would be like 90 if they're not. Um, yeah, so uh yeah, I don't know. I definitely am waffling on what the better speeder is. It's definitely not an Empire or Separatist
Nope.
speeder, though. That's for sure.
Nor is it a bark with a weapon, despite the massive points drop that they got.
Is it even? It feels non. It was It was not enough for me to even contemplate taking it.
No, I mean the speed 2 is such a downgrade that you would need to make it so cheap that it would actually be. It's one of those things that I feel like would instantly shift over from being so expensive that it's not worth it into being so cheap that it's ridiculous and it was a mistake to make it that cheap.
Sure.
And that it doesn't have the actual correct middle ground.
There are a bunch of like very binary things in this game that are like that, where it's like there's really no gray area. It's just it's either good or it's terrible, and depending on what side of the points line you're on, like that's kind of where you end up. But
yeah.
So should we talk about this what is it, the Pit Star Wars Legion GT in Wales?
Yeah. So just last weekend there was the first post points change GT. Quite well attended, 45 players over there in Cardiff, Wales. And yeah, like I think potentially we can maybe put a link to this in the description of the YouTube page or something like that. But
I can definitely do that.
Yeah, cool. So we can do that so that people can take a look and follow along if they're watching on YouTube. But an interesting mix is that it seems to me that it reflects a meta that is more equal. But and at the same time is that we see like a little bit of the old, a little bit of the new. I think just to run down, like without getting too deep into all of them, I'll go over the winner a little bit, which was Obi Commando list. This was played by James Whiting, and instead of the Anakin Commando silliness that you won Nova with, is that this is Obi Commandos, and they also had a 5's DP23, which is an inexpensive but very effective charging unit, and then 2 arcs with commanders. One of them had a DC-15, and then there was also one strike team with a DC-15. 3 commandos, all with HQ uplink, so that is 300 points of units right there. And then to top it all off, 2 naked clone infantry, which we were just talking about. And by the way, that Obi-Wan had aggressive tactics, which is a cool thing that you can do with either Obi-Wan or Rex that you cannot do with Anakin. And then also force barrier and saber throw, which was a force power that was truly and utterly garbage on the old version of Obi-Wan, but now that cover has changed, is that I think there's at least more of an argument to spend 5 points on it. But it's good to see Obi-Wan hanging in there despite the standby nerf, and the fact that his 3-pip doesn't really feel like it does much of anything, but James was able to take it through nonetheless.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, in a world where you're paying 90, or in this case 100 points for your clone commandos, paying to keep them alive with Ceresu and force barrier,
and surge tokens from aggressive tactics with the HQ uplink.
Yeah, like definitely probably worth. I could see that being good. I mean, at the end of the day, this is minus Kenobi.
Yeah.
This list is basically most of the good stuff that we have been seeing in Republic over the last 4 months or however long it's been.
But it certainly feels more fair than the Anakin lists were. And so I think that it's important to point out that you could look at this in sort of an overly negative way, in my opinion, to say, oh, well, Republic wins the first GT after the points change. Nothing has changed. Everything is terrible. But again, even though it is 3 of the top 8, it's not 5 or 6 of the top 8, which was very often happening pre-points change. And also, like, you would have 1 Obi-Wan, 1 Yoda, RIP, and then 4 Anakin lists in those 6 of the top 8 before. And here, the other 2 lists are single Anakin and Anakin Rex, with sort of various assortments of buddies along with them. But those were numbers 4 and 5. Winner was an Obi-Wan list. That is different. And the fact that there's other factions in the fray, it tells me that certainly things have moved into the right direction. It's an N of 1, but I guess I should say it looks like things are moving in the right direction.
Yeah, I do think that it's interesting. I didn't notice this before, but literally all of the Republic lists, all other than that 5s unit, all of the core have no heavies across all 3 of the lists in the top 8.
It's what we were just talking about it. And so like with B1s is that you get a bazillion bodies, but with clones is that you get less bodies, but a surge token with each one.
Yep.
And then like the value of that surge token is multiplicative in a way that having a bunch of them really does add up. And so, yeah, like it feels weird putting naked clones in a list, because it really used to be in the battle days is that there were some of those old Rexstar lists that would have one in there just because that's all that would fit. And then all it did was take like aim standby every turn.
Yeah, absolutely.
when things were a little bit darker in this game, but now is that they truly have a role and a value, and it really is all thanks to the new cover system. So once again, I do want to give props to that as being a change that allowed a greater amount of unit diversity into the game.
That's fair. You definitely, a lot of units that you could not take before you can take now because of that. That's for sure.
Including arc strikes, even though went a little bit far with that one. But they used to feel rough.
They, yeah. I mean, definitely we were living in a dodge token.
In a dodge environment, yeah. A dodge and outmaneuver environment.
Yes.
So even if you got the lucky crit, it was meaningless a lot of the time.
Yeah. So,
and then other lists is that we had Lila Claire ended up with 6 with a cool version of an XD list that had 1 snail, 3 decas, and a few more core. And then there was a Dooku B2 list. And then there was a Grievous and various pals. There's a Grievous Dooku list, I should say. So that was the number 3, and then the number 2 was this was the Grievous and pals that included 3 dwarf spider droids with defense protocols and flamethrowers, which is pretty rad. And then Grievous and a generic super tac and 1 AAT. So sort of like a nice potpourri of droids there. Also 2 rad cannons. Shout out to that guy. Rad cannons are sweet. And then rounding it out were 2 rebel lists, one of which was an Ewok list because Ewoks are very efficient. And the other one was sort of along the lines of like the rebel lists that have typically been doing good, which is either 3 or 4 of the more effective hero units backed up by Ewoks, as it so happens. This player, Brandon Corbett, crammed a rebel commander with underworld tactics in order to literally to get an extra slinger squad in there. And he also ran 2 skirmishers to boot. So he crammed with Ewoks and a couple regular rebel troopers and then laser ATRTs to sort of finish it off. All of this, it's a nice mix of factions. There were no true duplicates among any of this list, even within the same faction. And then also quick shout out to Fifth Trooper Zone, Andrew Terrell AGST, who was the top Empire at 16. He did have a winning record at 3-2. But he was playing Iden, some full scouts with sniper rifles, and then the variety pack of special forces. He also had Krennic, so he had Death Troopers, 2 strike teams, and then Inferno Squad, and one dewback flavor to round it out. And then I guess because he wanted to have bragging rights, he did run one riot control squad with the KX.
I mean,
so
it's
we'll
the best unit in all of Empire, right? You gotta take it.
I think that was a flex, Andy. I know your game. I'm gonna be on their podcast in a couple of weeks, so I'll find out the truth then. But I think he was just trying to. I think he was trying to do handstands on a bicycle there.
I mean, if you're gonna try and win, you got to win with style. Right?
That's right. That's right.
That's kind of how it goes.
I know we don't actually feel that way, the two of us, but Andy does, and that's good for him.
Man, at Riot Control Squad, I just wish that unit was, I don't know, something else. Every time I see it, I die a little inside.
I think I've said it already, but I was like, before the points drop happened, I was like, come on, AMG, just change the points on a unit that you just released.
Admit you made a mistake.
Do it.
It's okay.
Do it.
We all make mistakes.
Do it
fine.
To sell units. Like, there's too many on store shelves. Like, invite the comments from YouTube with glee and gusto to say that they looked at the sales numbers and had big frowny faces, and so they were panicked and said, subtract the points. I guess we'll have to wait until April, but it's definitely going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way that unit. I mean, I shouldn't say no way, but there's a very low likelihood of that unit staying that points cost for the duration of this game's lifetime. I'm a little curious because I played Separatists this weekend, and I was like, what are the Aqua droids gonna do, man? Are they like, what? I think they're just gonna be like this, like, I don't know.
The biggest question to me is still, are they vehicles or are they troopers?
I could have sworn they said that rules wise, they're vehicles. I thought I've heard them say that.
Yeah. Okay. It's like, yeah, you're not the first person to say that. And so, like, number one is that they're going to be a big wall of LOS blockers.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because like
there's 4 in a squad. Right?
There's 4 in a squad.
3 plus a heavy,
and you don't need to worry about displacing fools anymore. Is that you just like do your thing? There's never been a vehicle that was more than 2 minis, and like, people talk about hiding Ewoks behind ATRT, which is a total fantasy, but it's a totally different story of hiding just about anything.
I hid my B1 army behind my droidecas this weekend. That's all I'm gonna say.
Well, okay, but that's a lot wider than an ATRT, right? I mean, if you have
sure, that's fair.
But what's even wider than that is 4 droids
on bigger bases,
making a wall out of. Like, I think, the Deca is on the small base, and I think that if I'm seeing it right, is that it looks like the Aqua droids might be on the medium base, like the ATRT size, but I'm not positive. If you get 4
ATRT size bases, that's gonna be
that does sound insane. It has to be the small base.
That's like a walking building as far as line of sight goes.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just gonna tell myself that they're on the smaller, like speeder bike / Deca size base, because that would be too much. But that's a lot too.
With one unit,
yeah.
Like, I just like I'm trying to like think through it. Like, are they gonna have more than 2 wounds? They look like they have more than 2 wounds, but that's like a lot of wounds if they have more than 2 wounds apiece. Maybe they have armor or something. I don't know.
It is. I mean, like, it makes sense. It makes sense that they're heavies because, believe it or not, is that ever since the Kashyyyk wave dropped, is that separatists have been rolling with exactly 2 heavies available to them in their army like since then. I know that it feels like Republic has 2, but hashtag don't forget the lat. So,
Wait, what is our third?
the ISP.
Oh, sorry. In my head, the ISP is like
I know it
is a
doesn't feel like a
it's a
heavy.
support. It's like
It's a heavy support unit. Yeah,
yes.
yeah,
In
yeah.
for the price point and stuff, it feels like it's actually doesn't go in that
And
slot.
it is not bad now because of the reposition thing. But that aside, but yeah, it's like from a unit variety standpoint, is that it's true that they got the extra unit card for the snail, which then became the definitive unit card. Go figure. After 2.6 dropped, but anything's good that gives an army a wider variety of choices in terms of how to build it. And as I say that, it's like just it does get me more excited for thinking about when the clone marksmen come out. I hope that they're good, and I hope that they're fun. But
I'm gonna be honest. This
yeah.
may be controversial.
Oh no.
I hope the clone marksman is really bad. Here's why I say that.
Yeah.
I think a range for unit in clones that can share tokens will introduce a whole new level of crying from people into this game that we have not heard since the days of Rexstar. I I just I don't know. I'm really concerned about that, to be honest. I'm glad Recon Intel went up because I
Yeah.
think if you could spam Recon Intel on the marksman, I mean, they've all got DC-15s. They're gonna be at least range 4.
Yeah, it's true.
And if
It's
if
how
if
do
you
you how do you
if you can
balance
hit,
that?
that's the thing, right? If you can walk onto the table on turn 1 with 2+ aim, like you can easily get them 2 aim tokens between like Anakin's 3 pip and a shared aim from like an arc or something. They don't even have to take an aim action, and they've got 2 aim tokens at range 4 for whatever
Hmm.
their pool is. um I'm assuming they're going to change the profile of the DC-15. There's no way it's going to be 2 red critical 1 on on all those guns, but
No, no, no.
I'm assuming they're probably going to throw black dice, 1 each or something, and have like a heavy weapon that's similar to the DC.
Probably
Is my
they
expectation.
almost certainly won't have reliable though. And so that will mean that if you're investing in the range 4 unit, is that if you're going to be using them to like be users instead of providers of surge tokens, is that they will be spread out more than they were before.
That's fair.
And you'll have to mix them in with surge creators, which can be as easy as putting like Rex in there with aggressive tactics or Obi-Wan with aggressive tactics.
Yeah, or just yeah. But I'm happy that clone commandos went up, but I'm just like, we're already living in a world where the only range 4 clone units are the clone commandos, and they have dominated the meta for the duration of 2.6. Like,
Yeah.
how many more range 4 units do you have to put in the list with 3 clone commandos for it to really get out of hand?
Yeah.
Is I I mean, obviously it was already out of hand. But like, okay, they're paying 45 points more for their clone commandos. Does that matter if all of a sudden all of your core options can now participate in the battle with the clone commandos on turn 1?
Also, don't we already know that clone marksmen are a legal unit for the 501st Battle Force?
I have no
I
idea.
think that they are, because I think that was the first time I saw the name was like the new PDF is that it listed clone marksman, and I was like, what is that? And it was before I like looked at everything else.
Oh boy.
And
I'm gonna look at
so
that right
if you
now.
think, and so like when you think of it that way, is that you like, because before the one required core that you had to take is that was one of the few units that like didn't have a job on turn 1 except to maybe make a dodge token for its buddies so that the return fire wouldn't be as bad.
Yes.
But now if that is allowed, as I remember it, is that you would be able to give it a job on turn one.
It does say clone trooper marksmen
Oh
are
boy.
in the core slot
Hell
for
yeah.
501st. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know.
It
Also,
is
the
until
worth noting, Special Forces also has ARF troopers in the take, which means you could have I mean, I think the ARF troopers also were previewed with DC-15s. I believe they all have DC-15s in their kit. Like the models are all holding DC-15s. That means you can take 4 of them. This is the
it's
only place
true.
you're going to be able to do that.
At least
Um,
they're like, getting rid of an arc is a big trade in terms of mid game and late game.
you say that,
We
but
haven't seen the ARC troopers yet. It's fair. So we don't know what they're trading up for, and then there's the whole element of the Jedi attachment that's going to be able to go onto any of those. And I'm guessing that Jedi attachment is going to be, well, is it going to be in that captain slot, or is it going to be in the heavy slot?
it's got to be a squad leader.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah,
there's
yeah.
no way. I mean, I shouldn't say no way, but that squad leader slot seems like uh optimally used for something like a squad leader, right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I am very interested to see how that upgrade is, for lack of a better word, balanced. Because I think it's gonna either be really bonkers good, and you're gonna have. We were talking earlier, it's kind of on a nice edge of like that upgrade is either gonna be really good or really bad. And I don't think there's gonna be a lot of in between because it's not gonna like add to your range profile probably.
No, I think in my head, I'm like, what's in my head is like red, black, lethal one, or
Like in melee.
yeah. And then maybe like tap to deflect, something like that. I don't
Oh.
know. It's hard to think of how to make that balance. You're totally right.
That's the thing, right? Like, I'm not sure it can be good and balanced. I think you could probably be one or the other.
Yeah,
Like this could be really thematic and cool, and nobody will play it, or thematic and cool, and everyone will play it, and everybody will cry about it.
right.
Um, but I also, yeah, because like red,
It'll
black,
have
lethal one, like
sidearm.
you're never putting that in a core unit.
No, but I think that they said that the Jedi cap, like the Jedi, is going to be ARF and ARC only.
Oh, really? It's
Yeah,
just arcs and
they
arcs. I
definitely
was under
say
the
that.
impression that it was like you could put it in core units and
It
stuff
was,
too.
they said ARF and ARC, so it was only going to be able to go in the non-unique special forces that
Okay.
clones can run, that aside from Wookiees. And so that does
Interesting.
balance it to a certain extent. It does make me wonder, like, I wonder if they're going to have, are they going to have one that's more like sort of defense focused, to where it may have something like defend 2 and, like, a tap to deflect, and then because that's one you would want on an ARF unit, which is probably going to be more rangy. But on the ARC unit, you definitely like want the one that has the melee profile, because I can definitely see how they'd fit into the new form of ARC troopers. But
Oh
if
yeah.
if
I
the
mean,
if the ARF troopers are, maybe more like, sort of similar to Death Troopers in terms of the way that, I'm sure that their range attack be weaker than that. But if they're a
I
range
don't know
3-ish
about
unit,
that. They've all got
then
DC-15s and like rocket launchers and stuff. Like they're
yeah, I guess
clearly
you're
made
right.
to operate at range 4.
Maybe they
And
will be
unless
Death
the
Troopers.
DC-15 is now a range 3 gun,
Yeah,
which feels weird to me.
and they're probably gonna have. I mean, they're probably gonna have scout. They're recon guys.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe they'll even have infiltrate. I don't know.
That's what I'm saying. Like, you, I really am like, I don't know. Let's like hold the takes on like whether or not we want to introduce more range force shooting into the Republic arsenal.
I'm
Because
looking forward to it. That's all I can say.
I don't know. I'm tired of people like crying about Republic. I would rather Republic would be bad and people don't say anything than Republic be good and people are just like, oh my God, Republic's a menace, you
Yeah,
know?
you heard it here first. Whoever's playing in the next grand tournament, which might be PAX or something, is that uh if you're a Republic player, then maybe please like chill out a little bit. Just like, maybe try out a Yoda list to try to prove to people that it can still hang. It can't, but at least you'll get hipster points, and then you'll take a loss or two, and then maybe you'll prevent the faction from winning the first two GTs in a row, and the spyglass can maybe drift somewhere else for a bit.
Hot take though, if you are trying to win as Republic, I think you probably are taking Rex.
I mean, well, we just saw an Obi-Wan list that won a decent sized GT,
Sure. I think
and Anakin can, I'm
oh
sure, still do it.
yes.
I think that the three, good. I'm not trying to be too reductionist here, but like the
No, do
Anakin,
it. Do
Rex,
it.
and Obi-Wan are like kind of close to each other at this point in terms of viability. And then you take a step down to the Yoda Cody zone,
Whoa, whoa,
and
whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm sorry. Yoda's nowhere even near
you
Cody.
take a step down to the Cody zone, and then you take another 5 steps down to the Yoda zone,
Yeah.
and then there you go.
It is crazy. I wish I don't know what would make Cody good.
New command cards that like did more things.
Yeah, maybe. I actually think that like if he was in any other faction, he'd be fine.
Hmm. Yeah, you might be right.
Like range 4 sniper that has jump that like gets tokens whenever he like has direct,
Yeah,
has a, I
he's
don't
not
know.
terrible. He just feels kind of unexciting, and so I think that if he had dynamic command cards, is that he'd be much more attractive. It's not like he's not like a trash unit by any means. It just feels like as a player, it just feels a little bit monotonous playing a Cody list where you're just shooting the whole time.
That's fair. I do think that his 3 poop is a lot better now.
Yeah, yeah, it is.
Um, movement matters a whole heck of a lot more.
It sure
And
does.
yeah, I don't know. Yeah, maybe I'll try out Cody sometime soon. Um, get back into that action. Gotta get ready for the DC 15 meta.
Yeah, you've gotten me even more excited than I was before.
Excited. Yeah, I mean, look, they're cool sculpts. I'll give them that.
Yeah, yeah,
Definitely as far as the marksman and the ARF troopers are concerned. And I feel like they just assume you guys talked about it last week, but the aqua droids and crab droids going on pre-order.
yeah,
Was
yeah,
it
yeah.
last week?
The pre-orders went up last week, and we're
It's
we're probably gonna get the Aquadroid previews in a week and a half.
it's got to be soon, right? Because you can
Yeah,
pre-order them now.
yeah,
I Adepticon's also like gonna be here like very
yeah. Before we know
quickly.
it,
Yeah. Which I'm kind of excited about, and just to like this year's gone by pretty fast, but just to see a bunch of new stuff again would be pretty swell.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, I don't know. I'm definitely a little bit feeling a little optimistic about where we're at as far as after playing some games this weekend and watching the meta and stuff shake out. It doesn't seem like Anakin arcs are destroying everyone in the same way that they were before, and I guess we'll see.
yeah. But they importantly for the people who do exclusively play Republic is that it's very easy to say that Republic is still kicking, and I think that we all thought that anyway a couple of weeks ago, but proof is in the pudding right there. I do hope that maybe at PAX or somewhere else is that the Empire players can get some good performances, hopefully from something that's not Krennic, Vader Immortal, or like straight up Blizzard or straight up Tempest, because those have been sort of the three lists that have been successful is that I'm hoping to see something different so that the Empire players can flex the other half of their collection, so to speak.
I'm not even sure what that would be. The bounty hunters, I think, are sort of in need of a refresh.
Yeah.
In a world where orders and stuff matter a whole heck of a lot, bounty hunters only having command cards that issue orders to themselves really hurts, I think. And there's just less turns to play their cool command cards on.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. And they don't, the Boba rocket's great, but it doesn't gas your army like Tax Strike does.
Nope.
So kind of got to pick one or the other now. What would you kind of lay into first if you were trying to find an Empire list that like took that approach?
Of the bounty hunters, I do think that IG-11 is worth looking at. Like Rebel players have been looking at him. I don't think enough Empire players have been looking at him just in terms of the raw
He's much better now.
damage output that he can do, like with gunslinging around with 2 Pierce 1 guns. And then I was looking at some numbers that gentleman on Legion Discord, Minor Tom, put together in terms of like sort of doing some raw math stuff with Empire, and based on that, and numbers can lie just as well as people do, but certainly they are pointing in a direction that suggests that Empire players maybe aren't looking at Death Troopers quite as closely enough, and that includes DTF-16 as a compel choice that is easier to like move along with, say, a Dewback than it is for Krennic to move along with the Dewback.
Sure.
And then, but even for like the regular Death Troopers, is that the efficiency and the range forness is that can certainly add up. And then, yeah, for Cord, this is something that Andy did, aside from the flex riot control squad that we talked about, but he filled the rest out with snow troopers with ion guns that I think are actually like a very efficient and sensible choice, even in a world where there's going to be fewer commandos to shoot the shields off of.
Droids are still
there, yeah, yep, for sure. And then I wish that they like you do want to have a melee solution now, and I wish that there was another option for Empire aside from the Flamer dudes, just for the sake of variety. But
I thought you were gonna say I wish there was another option than Royal Guard, but you didn't even mention it.
What? Sorry, what is that? Yeah. The soft plastic red guys. I thought that those were discontinued. Yeah, by the Emperor, actually.
I think the naked version of them isn't terrible.
No, it's not terrible. It's, yeah, I know I said it a couple of episodes ago, but I still forget that they don't search it.
I mean, it's a crime.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's a crime. But yeah, I'm sure they'll get refreshed to search to hit. There's no way they won't. They also should just be immune to Pierce and melee.
Yeah, they shouldn't need the heavy for that.
No. But yeah, I feel like I teed you up there for like, yeah, you obviously should take 6 riot control squad and start there, but you definitely didn't swing.
I gotta move those off the shelves, everybody. So yeah, you heard it here first from Notorious Scoundrels. Riot control squads is the secret meta.
Make sure you take the marksman.
You're all fools for not buying 6 of them.
Yeah, man. They are sweet models, though.
Yeah,
I'll give them that.
Yeah, but that's the thing. PDFs can change, but the fact that the models are awesome means that there's nowhere to go but up, baby.
Yes, yeah, they're definitely down. So, all right. Well, you got anything else you wanna chat about today?
Just keep your eye out. Later this week, we're gonna get some more unit guides up on the site that are updated for Legion 2.6. concentrating on the units that have had card updates, because it's less likely that I'm going to have to do like another 270-degree turn the way that I've had to for all the unit guides so far whenever they release the updated. Like I could write a whole thing for Lando right now, for instance, and then I would probably have to just like ball it up and throw it in the trash when April comes by. So.
I feel like this is wishful thinking on your part, though, because it's totally within the realm of possibility that you could have started with Yoda and had to just rewrite that completely from the ground up.
Oh man, I'm really glad I didn't start with Yoda. I did start with Wookiee Defenders Battle Force though, which I think I actually need to go back and edit a little bit now. I mostly concentrated on the actual Wookiees, which means that not that much has changed, but I did talk about some Yoda tactics that are sadly dead.
Illegal? Yeah.
Illegal.
I would make it legal.
But yeah, just keep your eye out on the blog for some updated unit guides, and then yeah, later in December, I'll probably write some more, write something dumb because it's been too long since I wrote a nonsense article, and you need that every once in a while after my super serious analysis of the current state of Legion that I did last week.
That was a good article. You should be proud.
Thank you.
Yeah. I wish I was here to talk about it, to be honest, but I was feeling sick. It was probably better that I wasn't here. It's fine.
Yeah, that's why we told you to say you were sick again.
Yeah.
We didn't want you to be a big downer.
Yeah, I know. All right. I think that's gonna wrap it up for us today. This has been the Notorious Scoundrels podcast. I'm Mike.
I'm Evan.
Stay fresh, cheese bags.